to Global Regulatory Affairs Digital Week, brought to you by Informa Connect. My name is Jake and I'll be your host for today's session titled Industry Frequently Asked Questions on IDMP Implementation. First, I'll cover some quick housekeeping items. If you experience difficulties with audio or advancing slides, refresh your screen with F5. If you're experiencing other issues, hit the question mark button to receive assistance. At any time during the presentation, you can submit your questions into the Q&A window on the left-hand side of your screen. In 24 hours, you'll receive a link to watch the recording of this session. You can also download a few featured articles in the resource list box on the right-hand side of your screen. Now let's begin by introducing our speakers from Asphalion. Vidya Canovis, Key Accounts Director, Beatrice Mugode, a Regulatory Data Manager, and Helena Katina, Data Project Manager. Thank you all for joining us today. I hand over to you to begin your presentation.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this GPRAS digital session. I am Lydia Canovas, and what are we going to deal with today is a hot topic and a challenge for the pharmaceutical industry in general, and this is the process of ISO IDMP implementation. It's a pleasure to me to be here with my colleagues and co-presenters, Beatriz Ungalde and Elena Catena. So we three together, we go through this session. For those of you who don't know Asphalion yet, we are a consultancy company with providing solutions of regulatory, scientific, and safety services with offices in Barcelona, Madrid, Munich, and London. We work for over 20 years, so we were founded in year 2000 with over 170 members. We have to update this, and with a huge number of clients and projects accumulated. We are used to work as a high added value partner, offering solutions for highly complex challenges with a digital mindset, operating as an extension of your team and with a solid partners network. Among our services, we have units for regulatory, operations, CMC, development, and scientific writing, pharmacovigilance, and of course, data management. And what we do in our data management unit, precisely, we are experts in XDB-MPV, and we support companies to implement ISO IDMP, RIM systems, and document management system, among other services. And, well, after this short introduction about us, about Asphalion, I leave the floor to my colleague, Elena and Beatriz.
Thank you, Lydia. So, based on our experience and questions received, we have put together this Q&A. First, we will go through the most basic questions about IDMP, then questions about the IDMP implementation phases, and finishing up with some tips and tricks. So, having this clear, let's start with the first section, which would be a little introduction about ISO IDMP. So, first of all, let me ask you, how many of you feel identified with these images below? Well, if you are, don't worry, we understand. ISO IDMP can be challenging. So, the first topic aims to cover some basic questions about ISO IDMP. So, let's start from the beginning. Beatriz, what is ISO IDMP?
Thank you, Elena. Let's start with an essential point. ISO IDMP is a standard for the identification of medicinal products. It's a common language for the reliable exchange of medicinal product information in a robust and consistent way. It involves a group of 5 standards concerning units of measurement, pharmaceutical products, medicinal products, controlled vocabularies, and substances. It is based on the 4 domains of pharmaceutical master data, SPOR, To put it simply, it enables the identification and description of medicinal products for human use. Here we have, there is a relation between SPOR and IDMP, but how are they exactly linked? I would like to emphasize that SPOR is an acronym that refers to the 4 data management services: S for substance, P for product, O for organizations, and R for referentials. The substance management service identifies the ingredients and materials that constitute a medicinal product. The product management service identifies a medicinal product based on regulated information. The organization management service has organization names and location addresses of marketing authorization holders, sponsors, regulatory authorities, and manufacturers. And the referentials management service has control vocabularies to describe attributes such as dosage forms, units of measurement, and routes of administration. Definitely, the 4 domains of SPOR master data in pharmaceutical regulatory processes are the support of the ISO IDMP implementation. Okay, in the EMA first quarter system demo, some updates in regards to different systems and portals were given. One of them was the access to PMS data, which will not be through the SPOR web, but instead the PLM portal. Elena, would you please explain what PLM is and why the access to PMS data will be there?
Of course, Beatriz. PLM stands for Product Lifecycle Management Portal, and it hosts electronic application forms, electronic product information, and of course, it will host PMS in the European Union. PMS will be accessed through the PLM because the EMA made this technical decision to allow these 3 tools to be accessed through the same portal because it will make data sharing between them easier. Additionally, within PLM portal, there is also a link to SPOR, where the SMS, OMS, or RMS can be accessed if needed, which is quite useful. However, until the roles are defined, PMS cannot yet be accessed. But be careful. SPOR is not the only tool that is linked to ISO IDMP. It's important to ask ourselves, how is ISO IDMP interlinked with different systems? Well, as we can see in this graph, this is the product lifecycle, where we have here the different relevant systems shown. The first point that I want to point out is that although the first iteration of PMS will cover only authorized products, in the future PMS iteration, it will not only apply to authorized products, but also investigational products. So this ISO IDMP bar would be extended on the other phases. Secondly, as it was mentioned before, in the PLM portal, the data will be shared between PMS and web-based electronic application forms, linking these 2 systems. And, but not least, currently PMS obtains data from SIAMED and XDMPD, linking ISO IDMP with these 2 systems as well. So all these interactions have the purpose to support the exchange of information about medicinal products. Then, if PMS will be accessed through PLM, Beatriz, could you clarify what is exactly the product user interface for PMS?
It is great to know that the agency has started a design for the product user interface. Let me give you a bit of background. According to the Chapter 3 of the Implementation Guide, the product user interface will be available to support the PMS implementation. During the last demo, some of its view pages were shown: medicinal product, marketing authorization information, therapeutic product indication, and pharmaceutical product. The view pages for packaged medicinal product and ingredient are pending. That means the access to this product interface will be through PLM portal, but roles to access will be communicated in the future. We would like to go a bit deeper and explain how does IDMP organizes data. We need to keep in mind the data elements are grouped within 6 categories: medicinal product, marketing authorization information, therapeutic product indication, packaged medicinal product, ingredient, and pharmaceutical product. These data elements for medicinal products are based on SMPC, electronic application forms, relevant sections in Module 3, medicinal product authorization information, and pharmacovigilance information. What I want to highlight is the product management service organizes the data elements according to ISO IDMP model. So, based on this, a common question, Elena, is what is the most challenging category or class and why?
This is a very interesting question, especially to understand to what extent has the data model changed with ISO IDMP. According to our experience, the field that we think poses the highest challenge to the industry would be packaging. Currently, the packaging is reported in XBMPD, and it's done by uploading to the system the text that is available in section 6.5 from the SMPC. This is quite convenient for the industry, but from a data point perspective, not so much. Having a free text field is always very dangerous. The way that ISO IDMP is trying to solve this is by transforming this package description text into a structured data format. Starting from the package description, it will start categorizing the different levels of containers that the package would have. As we can see in this example, we would be going from a text, the package description, to a fully different data structure where each of the package items and containers will be defined. This is quite different, but in the long run, it will be more useful when understanding the data and treating it. So, in conclusion, having structured data is always more helpful in the long run. We often hear that it's not clear where to find up-to-date information regarding the implementation of ISO IDMP or the updates made by the EMA. And we often get this question of where we can find up-to-date information of the implementation of ISO IDMP that we can trust. So, all the information is available in the PMS web, which is a public site. It can be found in the Human Regulatory tab here within the Data on Medicines section and in the Substance and Product data in the left blue framework. Here you can find information about SPOR, PMS integration plan, IDMP implementation guidelines, and a Q&A document, among many other interesting things. We encourage anyone interested on this topic to take a look because it will really help to get started when dealing with ISO IDMP implementation. Regarding the guideline, what chapters does it have and which ones can help us understand when implementing ISO IDMP? Beatriz, can you help us with that?
Here we are. The guide contains 1 introduction and 9 chapters. Chapters 4, 5, and 9 are pending to be developed. Chapter 7 consists of the migration guide for data from SIAMED and XBMPD to PMS. Our suggestion is to read chapters 2 and 8 to get familiar with all data elements because the chapter 2 contains the description and the specific details of each data element, and the chapter 8 provides some useful examples to apply the criteria for a successful implementation. All you need is to understand how to apply the criteria to your portfolio. Now, moving to implementation phases. These questions concerns the order or the suggested phases to implement IDMP. So, Elena, could you talk about the EMA's plan to implement IDMP?
Of course. So the plan involves a phased implementation. First, there will be the product data preparatory phase, then a PMS implementation step 1 and a PMS implementation step 2. The product data preparatory phase focuses on getting the target operating model ready. EMA is still deciding some aspects of the implementation, which include a two-step approach where it will be first the migration of caps and then non-caps, and the replacement of the Article 57 data submission format with the ISO IDMP FHIR format. There is a main point to remember. It is needed to have different enablers in place to allow submissions to PMS. The agency will provide more information as soon as they have a better idea of the timelines. Following the current status where CAPS data has been migrating from SIAMED to PMS, Beatriz, would you please explain how is the migration from SIAMED to PMS being approached by the EMA?
Sure. Taking into consideration in SIAMED, each product is an umbrella containing several medicinal products, like this example. So we need to align the business rules. This is the reason PMS business rules split the parent product in the relevant medicinal products. With that, PMS assigns an ID for each medicinal product and one packaged medicinal product identifier for each presentation. It is meaningful to explain. Also, how does migration work from XCBMPD to PMS? On one hand, in XCBMPD, product data are identified with EB codes, either at medicinal product level or at presentation level. On the other hand, PMS are grouping these EB codes with the same data in the following fields: marketing authorization holder, authorization country, active substances, strength, pharmaceutical dose form, and product full name. It means if this data is common, a medicinal product identifier will be assigned. As a result, PMS will group these EB codes. So knowing all these details, Elena, please tell us about the EMA's work plan for PMS.
Of course. So during the last PMS webinar, the agency shared a summary of its work plan where we can see the completed, ongoing, and future work. Some highlights would be that, as mentioned before, the EMA is working on the development of the product user interface and the migration of XCBMPD data. And we can see that in the future work, the EMA is planning the XCBMPD replacement in the future, among other tasks. We can see that the EMA is busy and will be busy for quite a long time. To have a better idea of the status of the PMS features, Beatriz, could you provide details about the current status of work regarding PMS?
Precisely yesterday, in the last PMS webinar, the information was explained. The product data management services has 3 sets of activities. The first one focuses on PMS. The second is data quality, exchange, and synchronization services. And the last one is the product user interface activities. The green ones, like SIAMED and XCBMPD integrations, have already started, and the red ones have not started yet. Due to the complexity of XCBMPD decommission, is a priority for the agency to establish a synchronization mechanism between XCBMPD and PMS. This is the summary of the work plan so far. Let's see how it evolves.
Perfect. We are now reaching to our final topic, which will be, it's time to discuss what are the steps towards IDMP compliance and share as well some tips for efficiency. So, continuing with the last topic of data migration to PMS, knowing that there are several fields that will be migrated from XCBMPD, there is one common question. Could there be a data quality issue if there is incorrect information in XCBMPD? Beatriz, could you please take over and explain this?
Of course. In this example, the first record differs from the second one in the full name. The first one have the full name, the dosage form without S, and the second one has an S at the end of the full name. It would lead to have two medicinal products in PMS. So, which could be the solution? All we have to do is to correct one of the names in XCBMPD. And guess what? In this way, both presentations would be grouped in the same medicinal product ID. If we focus in the current status where we are now, I would like to ask Elena to explain how can industry approach the implementation of IDMP.
Well, there are mainly two roads to answer these questions, RIM or not RIM. This is the question. If you already have a RIM in place, then there has to be an analysis of the data compliance in the RIM system. We want to answer the following question. To what extent does your data follow or not follow the ISO IDMP standards? After knowing this, the RIM system would be then updated with the missing information, and then you would be ISO IDMP compliant. Yay, fantastic. But what happens if you do not have a RIM in place? Then you can ask yourself, is a RIM solution, would a RIM solution be useful for me? Of course, this may depend on the portfolio, your way of working, the resources. RIM's implementation is not mandatory, but it's also not exclusive for companies with big portfolios. RIMs can also accommodate products outside the scope of ISO IDMP. If you decide that a RIM solution is the best solution for you, then an analysis of the data compliance has to be done, as well as an implementation of the RIMs in place in parallel. On the other hand, if you decide that you do not need a RIM solution, there has to be also a step of an analysis of the data in your existing internal database or system. It's important that you keep in mind that the system where you try to be ISO IDMP compliant has to be ready to be able to capture all the required data. It doesn't matter if it's a RIMS, if it's not a RIMS, if it's an Excel file, it doesn't matter, but it has to be ready for ISO IDMP. Then, to continue with the tips, did you all know that not all IDMP fields may be applicable to you? Beatriz, you have participated in many IDMP projects for different clients with very different portfolios. Can you give us some examples and tips on this?
Sure. Sometimes it's very impressive to think about how many data fields ISO IDMP are intended to implement. But let's focus on an exclusion criteria. In the chapter 2, it is described the conformance level for each data element. So you can start by identify the mandatory ones. Then you can review which are the conditional ones that basically applies or not depending on the portfolio nature. One example is to discard information concerning orphan designation. In case your portfolio does not include orphan drugs, you can just forget about them. Cool, right? I think it's very important to be able to understand the requirements as a big picture, to know overall the options towards compliance, and as well to have some tips. But Elena, can we share if there is an easy approach towards IDMP?
Well, there is not a single way of approaching an implementation. You should choose an approach that works for your products and fits your way of working internally. But our recommendation for tackling this challenge is the following. First of all, a gap analysis should be performed where your internal system and ISO IDMP data model are compared, because it will exactly tell you what data is lacking and what you need to do exactly. Once you know what is missing, then you can start enriching this data, or in other words, filling up these gaps that were found in the previous step. This step is particularly challenging, as the data that can be missing can come from different sources and it may not be so straightforward. Then, this data that has been found, it has to be saved in your system somewhere so that it can be connected with the rest of your data. And last but not least, this data has to be maintained up to date, since it will need to be actual and up to date when PMS is fully ready.
Wow. Elena, it's okay, don't worry. It seems to be very simple according to this description. But we have a remaining question. Is there any watch out during this process?
This is a very interesting question because there can be a million watch-outs when dealing with a challenge so big. But according to what I have seen, the biggest watch-out is how you store the data and how it is organized. It's quite a challenge to know what data is missing and where do you find it and how can you put it correctly. But if the information is not stored strategically, this data gathering step that has been done and that has taken us months to do will not have any value. There is a lot of data to be gathered and organized, and it's easy to get lost in these steps. So my take-home message is there needs to be a solid overall strategy when dealing with ISO IDMP compliance.
In the last part, we would like to explain the perspectives of a RIM system. Elena, please continue to explain further how RIM systems are currently supporting IDMP projects.
Sure. In implementing ISO IDMP can be a painful task for pharmaceutical companies because there are a lot of things that have to be taken into account. Having a RIM system allows the company to have an optimum management of the regulatory data as well as being compliant with ISO IDMP. RIMs allow users to have structured and standardized data and serve as a single source of truth. Vendors are highly committed with ISO IDMP, and they are regularly making new releases for their tools to be up to date with EMA's updates. RIM systems also have connections with XBMPD, OMS, RMS, among other portals, so that receiving and sending information can be done in one place. Additionally, data processes in the RIMs are well defined, allowing users to keep data integrity at all times and a correct data governance. So to recap, yes, RIM systems support ISO IDMP and much more. Now, after having understood the big picture of ISO IDMP, Beatriz, what are the challenges that the industry is currently facing?
It's a good question. Industry faces a complexity during the IDMP implementation. Among others, we have: it is needed a transition period to get ready. Data needs to be aligned, so there have to be planning and quality reviews. We need to have a flexible mindset to adapt to coming changes. As example, changes in the guidelines are expected. We need to decide if a technology solution works for our company or not. And we need to keep in mind that several departments need to be involved during the implementation. To finish this section, a takeaway message is: what is a challenge today would become a benefit in the future. With this, we are coming to the end. So, Elena, could you please summarize the key points?
Of course. So, in a nutshell, we have discussed that ISO IDMP enables the identification and description of medicinal products for human use. SPOR has standardized data on 4 domains: SMS, PMS, OMS, and RMS, and will be the support for the ISO IDMP implementation. And PMS will be able to be accessed in the future through the PLM portal. So, what are some tips that you can take home? First of all, that it's very important to understand your data and the IDMP requirements. Please take benefit of the good to know, watch outs, and tips that you already know, because it's better to work smart and not hard. Then lastly, it's important to develop an implementation strategy on data and technology that adapts to your portfolio and your internal goals. Then, having said this, we would like to now talk about how can Asphalion help you with all of this. So Lydia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Elena and Beatriz, for this interesting questions and answers presentation. So, I hope that all you in the audience have enjoyed this explanation on these practical aspects of ISO ID implementation. And before we close our presentation, just a few words on how Asphalion can help you in this process. So, as anticipated, we can support pharma and medtech companies in all steps from early development to the registration and marketing authorization and post-authorization. And, if we see all the steps of the product development, we can start providing the service of XDVMPD that is in the green part of the slide, right on the clinical steps, because something that is normally not known, for instance, when we work for CTIS submission for clinical trials, there is the need that the substance is, the investigational medicinal product is in XDVMPD dictionary. So this is the first point where a pharmaceutical company will find across their development path the XDVMPD concept. Then during the whole life cycle of the product, we can support the XDVMPD operations and together with all the SPOR completion and correctness. The ISO IDMP compliance is something that, of course, we can support, that is in the period of the registration and authorization, and it is, so to speak, an evolution. The ISO IDMP standard is a kind of transition that companies have to undertake from the current XDV-MPD process. And, definitely, this transition from the current XDV-MPD processes to the ISO IDMP standard needs a deep organizational change. And awareness and training is essential and is something in which, of course, we can help. We can help as well in more operational work, such as in gathering the fields or helping to gather the fields, identifying the data that should be gathered to comply with the standards, and of course, providing the regulatory intelligence support. Another thing is that, XDV-MPD and XDV-MPD is still alive, and more important than ever, since the content of XDV-MPD is being migrated to PMS, and we have to check the correctness of the XDV-MPD and in special third acknowledgements. So this is a service that, of course, we can provide to support companies. And if we go to the next slide, last but not least, as Elena said, when we decide to start the challenging process of ISO IDMP compliance, the best tool to gather the data is to have a good RIM system implemented in-house that is compatible and ISO IDMP compliant, so we can put there the data. And I can say from our experience that a very efficient, when companies think about update or implement a RIM system, the gathering of ISO IDMP data concurrently in the same process of RIM implementation has proven to us to be an efficient and good process to be in the safe side. So, and this is our last slide. As I say, we hope that you have enjoyed this content and this explanation, and now we are open to respond your questions.
Great. Thank you, Lydia, Beatrice, and Helena, for an excellent presentation. We've received a few questions already, but we'll give the rest of you a moment to enter your questions in the Q&A box on the left side of the slide. Before we begin our Q&A, I'll run through some brief announcements. I'd like to thank our sponsors, ESCO and Asphalion, for sponsoring this digital week. Next, I'd like to introduce this year's Global Pharmaceutical Regulatory Affairs Summit, which takes place 23rd to the 25th of October in Brussels and aims to bring you fresh perspectives directly from regulatory authorities and industry leaders. You can book your pass today at informaconnect.com/global pharmaceutical regulatory affairs. And if you book by midnight this Friday, the 2nd of June, you can save up to £1,200 off your pass. I'll now begin our Q&A. First question, what are the main obstacles that we can find in the implementation of ISO IDMPs?
I can take this one.
Thank you.
The main obstacle is ISO IDMP is an integral project. It means it requires the participation of the involvement or different departments in the same company, but regulatory affairs is the one that is focused on the development of this project. So it's a challenge for this department to to provide awareness to the rest of the company. Taking this into account, also, when you perform the search of the missing data, you need also not only regulatory affairs sources, also is needed pharmacovigilance information, supply chain, and quality assurance information.
Great, thank you. Next question. What changes are expected on the chapters of the implementation guide?
Okay, I can take this one. It is expected the Chapter 7 will be updated after the non-CAPS data is available in PMS. And also, yesterday, the product owners explained there are coming changes in the Chapter 2 to add at least a couple of fields. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Next question. Has EMA opened any gateway in order to try and check our systems are compatible to send the data to EMA RIMs? Or in other words, is it possible to test the functionality of M2M gateways between the RIM systems and PMS?
I can take this question. So we know that now there are gateways that exist where you can send your information from your system to, for example, XEDMPD. This is an M2M connection, machine to machine. We can expect that some connection like this will happen when PMS goes live. And we can have more information about this on Chapter 6 from the guideline, but it's not that developed yet. So we can expect that we will have more information on the future, but we will definitely have a gateway for the M2M communication.
Great, thank you. Next question. How could we start preparing for IDMP and the API manufacturers? And for API manufacturers, exactly what will be our impact?
Okay.
I can take this one.
Okay, then go ahead, Beatriz.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify, the API manufacturers don't have the responsibility to fulfill ISO IDMP standards, but they can collaborate with the marketing authorization holders to have up-to-date their information in OMS.
Great,
May I add something? Yeah, because there is a number, this is Lydia, but because there is a number of data in the ISO IDMP standard that correspond to the API manufacturer, such as DMF numbers or certificates of European Pharmacopoeia data or this type of data. However, although this API data is part of the ISO IDMP standard, the API manufacturer is not obliged to submit anything. It is the marketing authorization holder of the final dosage form who is binded to make these submissions.
Great, thank you, Lydia. Next question. When is it planned by EMA to conduct the migration of the non-CAP data?
Okay, I can take this one. The PMS group say is the plan is to have the non-CAPS data within PMS available during this summer.
Great, thank you. Next question. Does EMA have any tool under development to enrich PMS via data extraction from available data at their end?
I can take this question. So unfortunately, the answer to this question would be no. The EMA does not have any tool under development to enrich PMS data. But if you need help with that, as Lydia explained, we in Asphalion would be very happy to help you and plan with you an approach that would suit your needs and your way of working.
Great, thank you. Next question. Is XEVMPD data still necessary?
I can take this one.
Sorry.
Sure. Go ahead, Lydia. Yeah.
No, please, Beatriz, go ahead. You go ahead, and then I will complement the information if it is the case.
Okay. Sure. XEVMPD submissions are still mandatory because it fulfills the Article 57 compliance. And until the PMS group issues a timeline for the XEVMPD replacement, we need to continue with the XEVMPD submissions.
Yes, that is totally correct. So the XEVMPD submissions are still needed, and as I said, more important than ever, because the data that we submit to XEVMPD is the data that will be migrated to PMS for the non-caps, and then this is something that we have to take care, good care about it. But in the future, one day, the XEVMPD database or the Article 57 database will be decommissioned, and instead of that database, we will be allowed to start using the PMS for direct communication of medicinal product data.
Great, thank you both. Next question. Is EMA opened the gateway to do the mock-up submission from our own RIM's IDMP system?
I think I can take on this question. So if I understood right, I think that what it has been asked if there's going to be a way to test the gateway when it is available. We can expect that there will be a test in environment where this can be tested through your own RIMs, but it's still yet not defined, as we said before. We are still pending on how this is going to work and what the approach will be. What I would like also to keep in mind is that although we do not have the information of how the gateway will work, we know about the format, the FHIR format. So if anyone wants to get a head start on this, take a look into that, because this is how it is going to be communicated.
Great, thank you. Next question. Can our RIMS database be integrated with the SPOR database to use the drop-down values in IDMP data?
The answer to this is a rotund yes. Yes, and yes. RIMS can have information from SPOR, and they should have the information from SPOR and be aligned with SPOR. So, yes.
Great, thank you. Next question. Is EMA implementing IDMP for medicines manufactured in Europe only for those manufactured outside of the EU also?
I can take this. So, well, this is a good question. So, the EMA is implementing the ISO IDMP standard for medicines registered in Europe. So, irrespective of where the medicinal product is manufactured, as long as the medicinal product is registered in one of the countries, one of the member states of the European territory, this will have to comply the ISO IDMP standard developed by EMA. For instance, I can give you an example. A product registered in Europe with a marketing authorization, either centralized or in one of the member states, Spain, Germany, wherever, that will have to comply the ISO IDMP standards, and it is irrelevant where it is manufactured. Another thing is that, well, we come across every day with companies that have products that encompass medicinal products registered in the European territory and other outside of the European territory. And, well, our first question is, well, how many of your products in your portfolio corresponds to European marketing authorizations, and how many are not European? Because this is going to give us the idea of the workload that means the ISO IDMP data enrichment, because it is not necessarily definitely for medicinal product registered outside Europe.
Great, thank you. Next question, what might be our last one. How would the differences between the RIM system and PMS system of the EMA be taken care of, as the information migrated from Article 57 and SIAMED could have a lot of differences?
Beatriz, shall I or shall you?
Go ahead, Lydia.
Okay. Well, the difference between the RIM system and the PMS system of EMA and how to deal with it. This is an interesting question. And the answer is only one. The answer is that we should perform a thorough gap analysis of what is in our RIM system, what are the fields of our RIM system, and what is the PMS structure of data that by the end of the day corresponds to the ISO IDMP standard. So gap analysis of our RIM system and what are the fields and the content is an essential activity.
Additionally, if I can add to this, there is also a very important step of the quality check. We need to check the quality of the data. If there are any mistakes or something, as we have said during this webinar, this will be very important to make sure that the data that goes into PMS is correct and aligned to what it should be.
And this is what we call data mapping or data cleaning. Hello?
Great, thank you for that. That's all the questions that we've had for today. If anyone submitted a question that wasn't addressed, keep in mind the speaker can reach out to you directly. This session was recorded and you'll receive a notification in 24 hours when the on-demand session is available for viewing. Please take a moment to complete our feedback form so we can continue to improve your digital week experience. Thank you to Lydia, Beatriz, and Helena for a great session. Is there anything else either of you would like to add?
No, I don't think so. Just to thank you. Thank you to the organization, to the GPRAS, and thank you to the audience for attending and for your questions. Thanks a lot.
Great, thank you. On behalf of Informa Connect Life Sciences, have a great day.
The same to you.